Such a joy to have everyone here. Such amazing energy to feel everyone in the one space. It's kind of an incredible everyone's journey to actually get here. And there's many stories that we'll probably all share amongst ourselves over this period of time. But what an incredible opportunity to share with each other these beautiful teachings and such a beautiful path of joy and light for this time. So.
And we're all here because of that inner call that said, take the next step on your path, as Asha has already told us today. We're all here because we're feeling that this is the time that we need to go deeper, we need to expand who we are and how we attune to the light. And to be in a room full of people who feel that same vision, that they're here and they want to take their next step and feel more peace or understand what's going on in the world from a higher place, to attune to the higher consciousness that's being uplifting the world, that we just have to align with that. And so we're all here together to do that. And there's people coming from even different places to be a part of that. So this is a really, not only an environment that embraces universal spirituality, but we're also coming from many walks of life to be here together today.
I have to share one, and for those that know Rose in Tasmania, but Tasmania actually did her Kriya by post over 15 years ago. So she sent away and did her whole Kriya course she didn't have internet at the time in Tasmania where she lives, but she actually sent it off and did her Kriya and it came back. And, so it's kind of interesting when we're on upside down, as we've many discussed around the southern hemisphere. But it's kind of an interesting spattering of many souls that have been able to be opened up by this and continue to be so fast in the future.
And we just thought we'd kind of share a little bit about what will happen tonight and get the announcements out of the way, and then we'll be able to begin this really uplifting evening together and have a prayer, and then Asha will speak, and we'll do even a fire ceremony, just to really allow ourselves to completely take in this experience for this weekend. And so just a few little things. We know there's probably going to be lots of questions that come up throughout this weekend. You always have us, and then I just thought we could maybe just point out Alexandra. She's going to be really helping, with like what's happening next and where are we going to be. But most of our things that we'll be doing together will be in here. So this is where we'll do our morning meditation practice, or sadhana. You'll hear us use that word a lot, sadhana. And that'll be in this room, 6 a.m. to 6:30. We'll be doing some exercises, and then after that will be the yoga exercises or energization exercises, for those of you who know. And then we'll go into the meditation time. And since tonight is really just a lot of us being here together for the first time, it's kind of helpful to know that some people may not always want to be in pictures, but if you're one of those people, there's a lot of media presence. We have lots of people that are here doing international media presence, but also even just individually. So if you're ever, just want to step out of the picture, just feel free to do that, and we'll all respect that need.
Or if you don't want to be filmed, maybe perhaps sit on
the sides.
And once we know where Asha's going to be, you just kind of sit there, so you won't be in any videos.
Absolutely. The sadhana, just a quick one on the sadhana in the morning. We will have a point halfway through. I think we decided that we'll do it at home, and then if that's enough for you, then feel free at that point to hop up and step out of the room. So
you can just do some quiet reading, or do something to help uplift your spirit. Take a walk in nature.
It's a beautiful spot to take advantage of.
Yeah.
So
one more thing that's just really fun is with this beautiful soul Asha, who we haven't even yet introduced formally. She did a pretty good job earlier of sharing how much time she really spent with Swami Priyananda, who is a direct disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda. And he's the author of Autobiography of a Yogi, and a lot of you have read that book, and that's part of why you're here. And he passed on to Swamiji this vision for this spiritual communities movement. And so Ananda started in California with that movement. And Asha was a part of that. She's a founding member of that, but she's also helped start and lead Ananda Palo Alto community. And now she is fulfilling that next phase of life, which is going out and sharing those teachings of Yogananda, which is what Swamiji endowed her to do, as well as write about him. And so she is a wealth of wisdom, and her name means hope. So what better person to lead this weekend about hope for a better world, hope for the future. So thank you, Asha.
Thank you, Kalamali.
And also joined is Dambara, who is all up there. You've been there for often and started many communities as well, has been a part of many communities.
Every time I see Dambara, I'm like, where are you living now?
Yeah. And the beauty of Swami said, there's a statement that if you wanted to get to know Swami, you had to know his music, and what a beautiful gift for us to have Dambara, who has just this deep understanding of the joy of Swami's music and the way it's presented. So for those that haven't been fully open to a sadhana, we have lots of chants that have been written by both Swami, or songs by Swami, and chants by Yogananda. So we have
We'll hear a lot of that throughout this
the
weekend.
beautiful touch of those songs.
And tonight
chants.
as well.
And tonight,
Yes.
we're going to be blessed.
So we'll pass it on to Asha. She'll
Shall we start with a prayer? Would you
Sure.
like to start with a prayer?
Go ahead, you can go ahead.
So feel free to repeat silently after me. Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Friend, beloved God,
Friend, beloved God,
Great Masters,
Great Masters,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Beloved Guru,
Beloved Guru,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Saints of all religions,
Saints of all religions,
we humbly bow to you all.
we humbly bow to you all.
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Great Gurus,
Great Gurus,
be with us now.
be with us now.
We offer ourselves to Thee.
We offer ourselves to Thee.
Fill us with your love and light.
Fill us with your love and light.
Bring us home to Thee.
Bring us home to Thee.
Om.
Om. Peace. Amen. Amen. Perfect. My turn? Is it your turn?
It's you.
No, they've already heard me, so you can play music.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just get an idea of who absolutely does not want to be in any video?
Let me say just something about why we're doing all of this. Many of you know that we have a YouTube channel, so I just like to make use of everything that we do. Ishani also does all the social media. We do it just so that other people will see what's possible. And for those of you who are more involved with Ananda, Ananda is a worldwide family, and they like to see their brothers and sisters in Australia. There's a lot of energy that goes around for people that you haven't yet met, who will be very happy to see your faces. So we're not doing it for any reason except just to communicate and draw others. But I do understand people, sometimes your presence would be awkward if it were known, or other things like that. Just so you'll understand, we're not doing it for any, there's no commercial use or anything like that. That's not what we're doing. Okay, so then the question is, who would really like not to ever be in the picture? Oh, well, that's convenient. Okay.
Great.
I shall go and do my hair.
Who would like to look better in the picture? Shani was a makeup artist for many years, so if you want to look better, look at home. I used to look better, but I gave up.
So many of you know what chanting's all about, but if you haven't chanted much, just feel free to hang back, tune in, feel what it's like running through your heart, and then sing if you feel to. You don't have to be perfectly on pitch, although I have noticed that Australians are really good musically. You guys sing really well, and you're just tuned in like that, so I don't know what that's about, but it sounds nice. So I will just do a chant called I Awake in Thy Light by Swami Kriyananda. And I invite you to sing or clap or whatever you want to do. I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light. I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light, I am joyful, I am free, I awake in thy light. Just feel that energy running through the heart upwards towards joy in the brain, offering that up into the divine light, realizing that's our true nature. Okay, we'll have a lot of chance to do that kind of fun stuff this weekend. I'm going to play a song now by Swami Kriyananda called Come Gather Round, which is appropriate for tonight. See if my guitar's in tune first. If you know this song, sing with me. Come gather round Let joy sing out today. Dawn now is breaking, and the mountains say, it's only light can make the darkness run. Lift up your head, greet the rising sun. Greet the rising sun. Some people think to harvest happiness by weeding troubles, easing every stress. The trouble is that troubles never end. Get rid of one, and you face its friend. And you face its friend. That's the last of what I'm going to sing to you. Now you're going to sing to me. And we're going to do a song appropriately for tonight called Give Me Light. And the melody is, give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Sing along with me. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Again. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Now, who's confident enough, a singer, that you can come up here with me and lead half of this group to do a round in that same song while I lead the other group in what we just sang? Come on up. Okay, so from here over is her group. From here over is my group. We'll sing together at first, but then I'm going to split off. Okay? So just watch me. When I kind of give you the eye, we're going to start a different timing than what they're doing. And then I'll give you the eye again, and we'll come back and join together if we're lucky. You just keep singing. You don't worry about anything. You just keep singing, okay? But let's all sing together now. Here we go. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Again. Give me a light to light my way. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Give me a light to light my way. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Truth is the light, so wise men say. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it was.
Does that make it easier? Okay. I'm going to just talk a little bit. Most of you were here at 5 o'clock, not every one of you. And I asked for one question, and the first question was the humdinger question. The world seems to be falling apart. What are we supposed to do about it now? And so we spent about an hour talking about it, so we're just sort of deep into the weeds already. But what we're supposed to do about it is exactly what we're doing about it. And the reason the world is falling apart is so that we will begin to think about where true happiness lies, what is security, why were we born, what defines a successful life, what is real, what is lasting, all the questions we should have been asking ourselves all along. And some of us have been all along, but society as a whole is really interested in other things. I don't know the culture of this country well enough. It doesn't seem as terrible as some of the places that I've been recently, but all of us have been born at a certain time for a certain reason, and we're always here to expand our consciousness. That's the only reason that we exist. And we think we're here for a lot of other things, but everything else is a means to an end, really. If you think about it, all of life is, it's really all like going to the gym, except that we live in the gym. You know, you go to the gym, and people enjoy the experience. I don't, but people enjoy the experience. But it's not like there's inherent value in doing all those exercises. We do it because it gives us a certain kind of strength that we think is valuable, and it allows us to exist without pain, to exist in lots of positive ways. But if anybody just thinks that life itself is just the gym, they're a little, you know, they've gotten a little out of balance. This is exactly what's going on in this world. None of us know why we were born. We don't remember choosing to be born. We just sort of end up here. And then somehow we make up what's going on here collectively as a society. You know, you're supposed to be good at school, you have to pass your exams, you have to then prepare. Now, at least where I live, it's probably just as bad here. You know, everything is about the future. Even children's lives are all about the future. I remember when Christmas, one child, I live in Palo Alto, which is about as intensely academic and pressured a place on the planet, although India's worse, actually. But for America, where I live, is pretty intense. And there was some like children writing letters to Santa Claus one year in the newspaper when we still had newspapers. And this child wrote, "I would just like a little time off." She said, I'm 12 years old, I'm just a kid, you know. I'm not ready to build my resume and try to get into Harvard. I'm just a kid. I mean, it was heartbreaking. But what's happening is everyone is thinking in materialistic terms. And so therefore you have to do all this stuff to get the right job, to get into the right school. This woman came to me for counseling, and she was talking about her daughter, and she was talking about the training courses that the daughter was having to take the measurement test so that she could, you know, get the highest score so that she could get into a college. I said to her, why don't you just not do any of that and let your daughter just take the test and then go to the college that matches her score? How about that? And she said, well, that's an odd way to look at it. I thought, what are we doing? You know, what we do with our children, but we're doing it to ourselves. We've just gotten very, very confused. And the masters, Yogananda specifically, with whom I'm the most familiar, but he's not the only one, basically says that, you know, God is going to do a little corrective for us. And things are not going to just continue as we've expected. And much of it may be tumultuous, but some of it is just, you know, people go to college for 4 years and then get a graduate degree to discover that there's been some new technological innovation that has simply eliminated their entire job. You know, now where I live, because of this incredible artificial intelligence thing, which is just really, really happening, now a whole other higher level of jobs are all going to be wiped out. You know, before we were just wiping out the little jobs, but now we're really wiping out the big ones, which is gradually going to all work to our good. Because we're all going to realize that we're just not going to be able to hold the world in the form that we want it. And our children, and speaking from my perspective, and our grandchildren, also are just going to have to, we're going to have to reinvent education. I mentioned that Aryavan is way involved in education now. Education's always been about information and skill. But information and skill is shifting so fast that information and skill won't take you anywhere. What you need is creativity. What you need is concentration. What you need is flexibility. What you need is intuition. What you need is courage. You know, what you need is a sense of adventure. And education has just gone completely away from that. We don't even let children be children. I was just hearing my friend Devarshi talking about the fact that, I was reading it in a book he wrote, he was an identical twin, and he just talked about, from a young age, he never understood what life was about, and he as a young boy, he lived in a rural area, and he had his identical twin brother, and they just spent all their time out in the woods. And when it was time to go to school, they banded together and refused to go. He said it took 4 days. They managed to postpone the inevitable for 4 days by the force of the two of them just refusing to go. But he knew that what they were going to tell him was not what he really wanted to know. Then, of course, he eventually became a disciple, and everything worked out in the best way. But we're a little bit ahead of the curve. We're not waiting to be thrown into the gutter before we start asking the question, why am I here? This is very, very good karma. It's very, very good karma at this particular time and place to be thinking about, what am I really here for? And even more, even if I have an inkling of what I'm here for, what tools do I need? What do I need to understand to really be able to do that? And this is where Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, which is really one of the most influential books on the planet right now. It's so interesting, and I've been doing this since I was 22, which is over 50 years now. And just in my, relatively speaking, short lifespan, I've just seen so many changes. We were so the lunatic fringe when we started. Some people say the cutting edge, but I personally prefer the lunatic fringe. It's much more interesting, and you're much less liable to get a fat head over being it. If you're on the cutting edge, you can be proud. If you're on the lunatic fringe, you don't even try. It's much more enjoyable. But when we started, all of this was so strange. Even just being a vegetarian. Some of my relatives thought I was going to die. I had to submit a list of everything I ate to a doctor. Unfortunately, the doctor was enlightened enough to say that I was going to outlive them all. I haven't yet, but I'm getting close to it. But that's how odd it was. Now where I live in California, I joke about this. Not everybody meditates in my part of California, but those who don't feel guilty because they know they ought to. And I think that's real progress. But the point is, some of us, I don't know why, but somehow we were born knowing. I mean, of course I know why, because we've been working at this for a long time. This is not our first round, and this is nobody's first round. We've all just been finishing a lifetime, getting a little rest in the astral world, having a little astral holiday, until some little bit of our karma starts making us restless. And we were so happy in the astral world where everything was so sweet. We were just with our same people, and we were enjoying the light, and we were doing all the things that Autobiography of a Yogi tells us you can do in the astral world. But then we get restless. There's just some part of us that's unfinished, and we look down, so to speak, and we see that cute boy who never really gave me the time of day is incarnating in that house, and maybe they want a baby next door, and then, or it just comes to us in some way. We don't even know. I don't have a real picture, but this is how it feels to me. You'll make a decision, I have a night off. I'm going to do a long yoga session, then I'm going to meditate, then I'm going to have a really healthy dinner, all these things. And you're about halfway through your first yoga postures, and you think, there's really nothing in the refrigerator. It would be just great to have a pizza. If I wait and get the pizza afterwards, it'll be kind of late, but I could just go get the pizza now, and then I'll put it, and then, So then you get up and you go get the pizza. But then when you get down to the pizza place, you see a friend that you haven't seen in a while, and they're eating the pizza right there. So you sit down with them and you have the pizza with them. Then they invite you to go out to a movie. Then at midnight you get home again and you see your yoga mat. It's just kind of sitting there. I think that's how we end up reincarnating. We're just enjoying ourselves in the astral world, and then comes the thought of pizza. And then we find ourselves making that first cry as we come out of the womb. Yogananda said the baby cries because it takes that first breath and it says, oh my gosh, I'm here again. On the other hand, we do it because we know that there's something important for us to learn. That we have things that we have to gain, and we have things we have to give. And also we have a collective duty, within spiritual families of each master, each lineage, or brothers and sisters and cousins all coming together, especially at a time like now, where there's this huge force that's pulling away from the light, and then there's a huge force that's pulling toward the light. And we have to see it from the divine perspective. Every single epic, big classical, inspiring work, it's always a war. It's very annoying. It's always a war. And that's not because it's a patriarchal world, but it's because it is always a war. It's a war just standing right here within myself. I'm sure that many of you know this. We run a school. We've run a school for 30 years in association with our community. Arivan was a founding child. He was the first kindergartner. One of the first kindergartners went through our whole school. We only went to 8th grade then, so then we had to send him out to the cruel, hard world, but he coped. But one of the little kindergarten kids, she was a real strong-willed child, super strong-willed. She came into kindergarten one day and she was impossible for her teacher, just impossible. And so finally the teacher took her and said, what is going on with you today? Well, she said, every day I come to school and there's an angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, and usually I listen to the angel, but today I thought I'd listen to the devil. Very honest. Children just tell you like it is. But that's what we're always living with, isn't it? And you can call it an angel and a devil if you want to, because that vocabulary actually works. But what it really is this. We have a whole aspect of our consciousness, which the word subconscious is a good word for it, not the way Jung or the others use it, but just take it as I'm saying it. Subconscious, because it's just below the conscious level, but it's aware. It's a living reality. And it's basically the repository of everything that's already happened. And that doesn't mean just in this lifetime, every incarnation. Our karma continues from life to life, and there's the metaphysics of how it does it. But suffice to say, we remember it. It's stored in the chakras, is what it is. So it's subconscious there. And it's not evil or anything like that. It's just what we've already become. Everything we've already done. And everything that we've already done is very familiar to us. And we're comfortable with it. And everything that we've already done has a certain magnetism. It's just a pattern. This is what we think. This is how our family does it. This is my culture. This is what I've always done. This is how I think about it. This is what I prefer. All these things. It's already established, so it's easy. We just go with it. And many people live many, many, many lifetimes just on the repeating pattern. They just never put out the energy to think anything new. Subconscious is not creative. It doesn't make anything new. It just does the same thing over and over. You see people around you who they're the same from the beginning to the end. And they have the same ideas at the end of their life that they had at the beginning, only they've kind of run out of juice. So they're doing them a little bit weaker, but same story. And sometimes, children, they can be 10 and they can already be what Yogananda called psychological antiques. When I was 18, 19, and the first person I knew was getting married. It happened to just be someone who was working in this office where I was working in. And I've always been eccentric and very self-determined and rebellious. Nonconformist was the word that we used in those days. This woman was getting married, and she was getting married by looking at all the bridal magazines and decided how you got married. And to me, I was naive, and I'm first to say it, but I was shocked that somebody would take something so personal from everybody else's reality. like that. I got more mature and understanding of human nature. I didn't keep in touch with them, but I'm certain she got divorced, according to the magazine also. Because she was just going to float with whatever was there. That was just, she was going to just live a subconscious life. On the other side, the angel side, is superconsciousness. And superconsciousness is essentially the link between our seemingly separate individual reality and the infinity that is our true nature. Superconsciousness is the doorway to our infinite destiny. A very simple way to think of it is an inverted triangle like this. And this is superconscious. It just goes out like that, literally to infinity, and it comes down to a little point that we can access with the mind we have right now. Superconscious is creative, meaning it takes us to places that we've never been before. It makes something new out of what we are. And it's intuition, and above all, it's God's call within. It's the superconscious that's saying, come, you can be much more than you are. You can be bigger, you can be more joyful. You don't have to follow the well-beaten path. Have courage, be interested. And of course, it takes more energy to do that, because the groove that's already cut, you just go down, just slide down the hill. The groove that isn't cut, you have to have the shovel, you have to have the pick, you have to have the nerve, you have to have the imagination. And that's where we always are. And the conscious, which is the third level, there are three: subconscious, conscious, superconscious. Conscious is essentially where we are now. We have a shared reality. We have these basic ideas, but it doesn't really exist as a separate entity. It's the field of Kurukshetra. That's the image of the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata. The battle between Arjuna and his cousins for the rulership of the kingdom took place on the battle of Kurukshetra. The kingdom is our consciousness. The battle of Kurukshetra is the decision that we make every day. Do I flow with the subconscious, or do I move to the superconscious and respond to that call? Right? And that's the fun of this is there's never 1 minute of our lives in which we don't get to make a choice. Every thought, every action, every feeling, what am I doing? Which way am I going? And so we always get to work on it. No equipment is required. We're just carrying it around inside of us. And because the age on the planet is rising, and therefore the divine wanted a bunch of the, what do you call it? The Pandavas, the Arjuna's people, the ones who are going to choose the light. So I was saying earlier about how Divine Mother sent a lot of her rowdy children in to make chaos at this particular time. She also sent her children of light in to make light at this period of time. So we always come for our own salvation first, and know everything that happens in this whole world, which seems so important, is actually just the painted backdrop. For theater. When I was younger, I really enjoyed theater. It's the only thing I enjoyed was putting on a costume and memorizing the lines and getting up on stage. You would have my friend and I actually did this when I was all through my high school years. We did children's theater. We did creative theater with children. It was really fun. We did, what do you say? The children wrote their own plays and gave their own lines. And they didn't write them. They just acted them. We would teach them the story, we'd give them the parts, and then they would make up their lines each night or each performance. It was totally fun. And it was sometimes hilariously fun, But you would have them just immerse themselves. You are the princess, here is the prince, this is the villain. And they would make it up. It's a whole thing that I learned how to do. I forget, it was so long ago, I forget that I did it. My partner in it was this man named John Beatty, and he was immensely talented as an artist. He actually went on to be a set designer for Broadway and Hollywood, and he won prizes and things like that. And so he used to paint the backdrops. And he was such a good artist, he would have the kids do big parts of it, and then he would come through and make it look gorgeous. But they could still find what they painted, so they would see this magnificent thing, but they know that they'd done it. So Anyway, all of that's just secondary. But I had that picture in my mind. We'd always, every time we did a play, we'd make the big backdrop, and then we'd all act it out in front of them. So this whole world, which seems so real to us, is actually just the painted backdrop for the actual play. And the actual play is, there's an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. And who am I going to be? We have our subconscious self that's just wanting us to continue and take the road of least resistance and don't make any waves, do it the way they've always done it, don't make any trouble. And it's just easier, it's too much trouble. And then the other side is the whisper that's saying, you are made for greatness. You are a great spiritual being. You have the power of infinite love in you. Will you rise to that occasion? And it doesn't have to show. You don't ever have to stand here and have everybody listening to you. I've got the microphone on. This is my particular job. But it's just my job. Because the only thing that really counts is what we're doing with our consciousness. Because all the rest of us, it just goes away. When we leave this world, I love the fact that we all die. I know that sounds a little morbid, but I do. Because everything just clicks into place. You know? Storing up treasure that is going to be destroyed by flood and moth, you know? Or are we building up the treasure that nothing can take from us, which is courage, creativity, and the ability to hear and respond to that inner voice? And that's the only measurement that matters. When we leave this world, nobody asks, you know, what your bank account was when you died. They don't. It's just, there's a wonderful story by Dr. Ritchie. And he died at the age of 21 toward the end of World War II from the Spanish flu in somewhere in Texas. Wonderful story he has. It's called Return from Tomorrow. And he died, and he was drawn, and because he was a Christian, Southern Baptist actually, he met Jesus. He called him the Savior. The Savior came to get him. And his story was that his mother had died when he was quite young, and his father had remarried and married a lovely woman, but his mother's parents never got over the death of their child, and they never wanted him to love his stepmother. Awful, awful story. And he knew it was wrong, but he let them, they persuaded him. So he'd been kind of a naughty boy. So he dies, and he's there with Jesus, and he says 360-degree movie of everything of his life from his birth. Everything is happening at the same time, and in the way it can be on that dimension, he could see it simultaneously. He knew that Jesus could see it. And so they're standing there together, and Jesus says to him, how much have you loved? And Richie says, this is all thought by thought, but this is the conversation. I'm just 21 years old. I haven't had a chance to do anything. Jesus is totally unconvinced that this is a good response. He just says again, how much have you loved? And it was perfectly obvious that he hadn't loved very much at all. And he's looking at this very embarrassing picture of just selfishness. And he sees over there that he was an Eagle Scout. So he thought, well, I was an Eagle Scout, so this is what he does. This is how he describes it. He kind of stretches his arms out, trying to block as much of this as he can, and point over to being an Eagle Scout like this. And he said he could tell immediately that Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. And then he said, the Savior was amused. That was what he said. But he said it with a Southern accent. The Savior was amused, is what he says. That Jesus wasn't even upset with him. I mean, he wasn't even slightly upset. It was just, oh, really? You know, you think this is going to work? What kind of a joke is this? And then at that point, he says he just completely surrendered. And he just allowed the love of Jesus to come into him, which is the love of God in whatever form And he recognized that Jesus was on his side. He didn't have to try to defend himself or make it different, but it was a very real question. How much have you loved? And it wasn't that he was young, because we're not young. We just have a body of a certain age, but we were old yesterday, we're young today, we're old tomorrow, we're young the next time. You know, how old then are we? And he just realized that nothing made any difference, but how much have you loved? And then he was sent back to his body, he became a doctor, many things happened. But he said, you know, every single experience, he could hear the voice of Jesus. How much have you loved? Now, that's what matters. Because in the end, that's all there is. And even though this world appears to be run by other rules, it isn't. That's subconsciousness. That just it's more convenient not to think. But superconscious tells us there's only one thing that matters. How much are we opening our hearts? And believe me, this does not mean that you always are a doormat, or that you're always nice, or that you always go along with what other people want. Love is the greatest power in the universe. It destroys and raises civilizations. It has all the power of God in it. Love is another synonym for the divine force. So this isn't that we just become wimpy little nothings. It's exactly the opposite. I mean, think about Christ, since I was talking about him. You know, think of the power. Think of Arjuna, think of Krishna. All of these images, all these war images of conquering heroes who ruthlessly disintegrate everything that stands in the way of Dharma. That's what we're talking about. Maybe even if we just live the tiniest little life over here, you know, make cookies for our children and take care of our grandchildren and make a happy home for the people that we love, because that's all that we're going to be asked. How much did you love? And so we're here to practice, and we're here to hone our skill. That's 100% why we're here together. That's why we're doing this. I referenced Yogananda's book a little while ago, but I'm going to leave that for now. I'll pick it up later. So tonight, we're going to start, you know, our adventure together. And since we're going to be here for a few days, it's a short time, but it's a long time, because we've created another world for ourselves. You know, all of you, all of us, we're all away from home. Some of us are very far from home, but where is home? It's always here. We're always standing here. And God doesn't separate from us. He knows where Australia is. You know, he knows where we all are. We've all been called to have the opportunity to have many hours where we have no other priority except to strengthen our capacity to choose the light. And we, again, are in an artificial world. We're not facing our challenges at home. We've left all the unpleasant people behind, probably, except that we're carrying them in our head. All the things that we're worrying about, I have my little list. You know, we all have it. But we're here to strengthen our capacity to choose the light. And we're here to help each other do that, which we can be tremendous help to one another, just by always being aware of why we're here. And practicing with each other. You know, practicing just recognizing, well, this is someone I've never seen before, whose life experience is entirely different than mine. Instead of thinking about what separates us, let me see if I can feel all that draws us together. Let us choose the light. And watch your minds. Just watch how the subconscious wants you to break everything into separateness, and the superconsciousness wants us to see all the ways in which we're the same. So we want to start this evening with a fire ceremony, because fire is one of the most powerful symbols of transformation. On our Sunday service, we're going to do the Festival of Light and everything, right? There's a part of this ritual that Swami wrote where we hold up one candle and we say, gaze upon this light as a symbol of God's love. And I've had the opportunity to preside over that ceremony many times, and it's a bigger candle than this, but I can hold it up. You know, you'll hold up a candle and there's a candle flame in there. This is being a real candle. You can see it. It's look how small it is. You know, it doesn't look like anything. And if I just breathed on it, it'll go out. But if I use this to ignite that, and that ignites that, and that ignites that, this edifice, which appears so strong, it can be reduced to nothing, starting with that. That's why fire is such a potent symbol. And because it's also light, which of course is also important, but it's power. And it helps us to understand where our own power comes from. It doesn't come from all of this world. This world can be just extinguished by this much light. So we're going to start with a fire ceremony, and with two Sanskrit mantras, the Gayatri mantra and the, I always forget, Mahamrityunjaya mantra. And we will also, during those two mantras, you know, when Yogananda came from India to the West, because his mission was really in Los Angeles, California. He was 27 when his guru sent him from India to the USA. He was in Boston for a short time, and then he settled in Los Angeles, and that's where he spent his whole life. He was totally immersed in Hindu culture. He brought none of it. He brought a whole new expression of spirituality. He also brought Jesus, put Jesus on the altar, but he didn't teach anything that sounded like Catholicism or Christianity. He took the essence of all spirituality and made a new expression for a new age. But he brought two Sanskrit mantras and a fire ceremony. So Swamiji, following his guru's way of doing things, this is what we do. So the two mantras are ancient. No one knows how old these are. The sound of the Sanskrit syllables in itself changes our vibration. And then symbolically, around the fire, which is outside, we have ghee, which is purified butter, which represents devotion. And we'll just have one bowl, which I'll do for all of us. But each time we put that devotion into the fire and the fire takes it, we're offering our hearts at the spiritual eye into the light that we see. And by doing it physically and visually, it's not superstition. You can't pay the pujari, the priest, to do it for you and think you'll actually get any benefit. That's not what we're working with. But if we use the external symbol to strengthen that power within us, ritual, a little bit of ritual can help us go deeper. And then for the second mantra, everyone will have some rice, a handful of rice. And rice is extraordinary because each of those little grains is a seed. And therefore you could plant that seed and you'll get hundreds and thousands of more little seeds, which is the miracle of life. But each of those seeds also represents karma, karma is something we have to learn about what causes suffering and what brings happiness. And all of us have unlearned lessons. That's why we're called back to this world again and again, because there's something we don't yet understand. So then our karma calls us into relationships, into professions, into illness or health, into certain families, countries, cultures, because that situation will help us to learn something we don't know about happiness and suffering. But we either live through all of those experiences to learn the lesson, or we take the karma and we offer it up into the spiritual power and we choose the light without having to learn to reject all of those other things. To transcend is the right word. So we symbolically, a few grains at a time, we throw the karma into the fire, and that self-offering absolves it without having to live through it. It's not superstition, though. It's not magic, I mean. So you have to do it with concentration. And also, because we're here for these 3 days together, feel as you're offering that karma into the fire that you're also asking, in however way you want to phrase that, to be changed by our time together, to really have karma burned up. And if you have a specific intention of something that you know is ripe to be dissolved, focus on it when you throw the karma in. Let each toss of it be something specific, if you feel to, that you're just really handing this over, hoping to be elevated, to transcend, but you're just handing it over to the divine. Okay? So, we're going to go outside now, and when we finish the fire ceremony, we'll just disperse back to our rooms, and that'll be the end of our evening.